Good afternoon, everyone. This is Martin Lord with Ontario Centers of Excellence. I'm a Senior Sector Manager in the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network team. I'm pleased to be your host today and to bring together this collaboration and this panel who will basically look at what's going on here in a post-COVID environment. So we basically here, the idea is to work more closely, and incidentally, there was, of course, an interesting meeting last week between our two premiers. The ecosystems in both Quebec and Ontario, I think, have good complementarity and good value together. And so what we wanted to do is to kind of try to break us out of the current kind of blah created by COVID and showcase to you today two success stories, two companies that are that we consider as being leaders in their own sectors that have been known to us for quite some time, and so because of the constricted landscape that's been resulting from the pandemic, we want to showcase that indeed companies can still thrive. And so for instance, we've got the company Jalon, who basically whose case will demonstrate the success story of a company that was able to pivot successfully during the pandemic. And Pantonium is an example of a company that exercised resiliency and maximized its efficiency and growth during the pandemic. And of course, with all this, I'm joined by our partner here in crime, InnovÉÉ, and we're pleased to be partnering with them on this side. And so what we want to do today is really to reinforce cross-border partnership between the two provinces, share best practices, showcase to you how these companies are making do and thriving within the pandemic. And then, of course, we're looking for further opportunities for combined or collaboration and for growth in the ecosystem of both provinces. So the next step here will be for me to give you a quick overview about Avon. Give me a moment. There we go here. So you should see my screen now. So Avon, Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. So who we are? Well, we are basically an initiative from the Government of Ontario, both Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, as well as Ministry of Transportation, that is basically looking to help the industry in Ontario, which has been strong over the years with the 5 major auto manufacturers in the province, producing a bit over 2 million cars last year, and then our strong information and communication technology corridor in the Ottawa, Toronto, Waterloo. So indeed, so we are basically trying to help shape the future here. And the idea is really to enable enable further the transportation and infrastructure networks of the province. The key component, it is a key component of driving prosperity, which is the Government of Ontario's flagship initiative to create a plan for the growth and the future of the automotive and mobility industry in Ontario. So the objectives of Avon are fivefold, really. So we're really after economic development, job creation, scaling startups, SMEs, giving them basically giving them connections and enabling them to access global markets. So Ontario, of course, we help putting it on the map because this really is a strong opportunity for us, given the strong automotive and ICT leadership that we have. Then there is, of course, innovation and collaboration, a number of stakeholders in the industry, but also with governments, also with municipalities, the ones actually who own the roads and who will be really adopting many of these technologies. Of course, there's a big deal about talent and all of this. And then we want to support our clusters, as I mentioned earlier. So to do that, then we've got what we call a hub, the central hub, which is based in Toronto and led by Ryan Kadri. And we've got a team now of 11 people in total. But we also have a network. The network is comprised of 7 sites. We call them the Regional Technology Development Sites and the Demo Zone. And those sites are there to basically help be entry points, as they are regional hubs for companies, again, inventors, SMEs, startups, to engage into the environment of autonomous vehicle innovation. And of course, the name is autonomous vehicle, but we're really doing much more than that. We're doing intelligent transportation systems, anything really that's related to what you could call nowadays smart mobility. So those sites here are available for people to engage in, and they will provide services, facilities, capabilities for those SMEs. So we have 4 major programs. So I'll go through very quickly here, but we've got basically an EV R&D partnership fund, and whereby you could get up to $1 million. That corresponds to 1/3 of the project budget. We've got a winter tech development for severe winter conditions, up to $500,000. And then the talent development is where SMEs and MNEs can hire the new skills for tomorrow to work on specific internal projects. A few funded projects here. That's really a snapshot of the 45+ projects we've supported so far. So major OEMs, tier 1s and tier 2s are involved. Valeo Canada, Omron, now called Nidec, Forcia, Thales Canada, GM Canada. That's all I have for you right now. I'll pass on now the podium to Jalon.
Right. Thank you, Martin. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, share. So hello, everyone. My name is Charles Reboul. I'm working for InnovÉÉ as Innovation and Sustainable Mobility Advisor. In a few words, so, okay, here it is. So InnovÉÉÉ is one of the 9 non-for-profit organizations that are dedicated to the collaborative research in Quebec. So we are mandated by the Quebec Ministry of Economy and Innovation. And so we support and fund the collaborative research in Quebec. So for your information, collaborative research is a partnership between academic research center, for instance, like college or university, and private corporation, SMEs, startups, and stuff. Our mission is to enable collaborative research and R&D partnerships. So we contribute to the industrial competitiveness and of the renewable energy and smart mobility sectors. And we definitely meet OCE Avon objectives in generating value for the Quebec SMEs and startups ecosystems. In other words, we really support the project development and fund it. We gather expertise and resources from both industrial partners and research centers to come with projects. Our first, so we support SMEs and industrial partners in the innovation process through 3 steps. The first one is to build awareness through various means. Could be social media, attending or organizing events, or through our newsletters. So we collect, we share key information, we kind of animate our ecosystem around those elements, and we promote, definitely promote the collaborative research in Quebec and across Canada. The second step is to engage our community. We create opportunities for our members and partners to meet, to share, and to generate ideas. That's what we want. We want people to come with innovation ideas. So we have several tools. We built a community of interest, working on strategic topics. We also do matchmaking to help finding partners. So that's the kind of work we do to engage the community. And the last step is to support applicants step by step on the so the Ministry of Economy and Innovation programs that we support. And so once you have your innovation idea that is here, so we help you to apply, we help you to find the right partners, we help you to understand what are the requirements of the programs to be able to get that funding. So you can reach with the provincial and the federal programs up to 80% and even 90% on your projects. So our goal is to help you to build your project in order to access those funds. So that's what we do for our ecosystem and our partners and members. So as a result, we have a lot of connections with research centers, with industrial partners. So that's the kind of the value we can bring to our ecosystem. We, for example, last year we approved 23 projects for a value of about 18 million. So which is kind of pretty interesting, and in this kind of project. We have 2 kind of research lines. The first one is, so I'm going to be very short on that one, is about power generation and distribution. So that's all about the renewable energy. If anyone is interested about that, then please contact me. I'll link you to my colleague in charge of that topic. The other research line is about smart and sustainable mobility. From battery design to recycling, from and V2X project or ADAS or autonomous project or AI, we kind of work on pretty much every kind of possible project, as long as it's related to collaborative research in the smart and sustainable mobility. I have for you 3 case studies to highlight the kind of project we can support, but definitely there's we are really open to any kind of project as long as it's related to sustainable mobility. The first one is for a robust rapid transit system. So we help. So our member in charge of the project is always an academic university research center. So in that case, it was Université de Laval with their partners Thales and LedarTech. And so they did a feasibility demonstration about a semi-autonomous guided vehicle within this bus rapid transit system. The goal of that work, the objective was to collect data, design, implement, and test a prototype. So that was a tier 3. I don't remember. It was a 4 or 5 at the end of the project, but that's totally related to the autonomous vehicle industry. Another one is related to the autonomous and electrical system. So that was an answer to the farmers' needs. So there is a lack of workforce, of resource in the agricultural and farming industry, and so they came with the needs. So we need people to work, and so the Innovative Vehicle Institute came with an idea. So it's a college research center we work with. And this idea was to develop a robot, agricultural robot, autonomous and electrical, to be able to perform those farming works. And another project, which is a current one, so it started at TRL 2, and it's about a smart charging system for e-bus fleets. that's interesting because we have here a e-bus manufacturer, which is Autobus Lyon, but also Hydro-Quebec, which is the energy provider. We have Laval, Autobus Laval, which is an operator, and we have still IVI, which is the College Research Center we work with. And so they worked on developing a system to support their power needs and avoid peaks of charge. So that is the kind of project we support, and I'll be like to give you more information on another hand if you want. And that's all from my side. And I think now it's time for me to introduce you to Jalon, which is a non-for-profit organization founded in 2017, in the city of Montreal. And they are deeply involved in shaping the future of mobility in Montreal. And so I'm glad to have Michael with us today.
Thank you, Charles. I need you to stop sharing. Thank you. So the aim at Jalon Mtl is to make mobility more sustainable, the mobility for people and mobility for goods. And today I will focus on mobility of the goods. So quick step back in 2018, where city of Montreal is facing, like any other city in the world, the huge increase in e-commerce and the impact on the streets. This picture is from New York. And the delivering of parcel and of goods is still very classical, where we have warehouses outside the dense areas. We have the trucks going through the highways and crisscrossing in the neighborhood. And these trucks in the neighborhoods, they are really colliding with a very dense environment. Therefore, we see a risk of collision, congestions, hindrance, greenhouse gas emission, noise, cost for companies in tickets, fines, or fuel, cost for society, and slower and lower performance of the deliveries of goods. So in this context, the city of Montreal asked us in 2018 to find solutions to reduce all these negative externalities. And at this date, we were really not experts in urban mobility or in goods deliveries. So our approach was to go and find help with the stakeholders. So we invited 40 stakeholders around the table and asked them, what is your pain point, what is your major stakes, your challenges, and what would you do if you were the mayor of the city? Easily we find some common interest, because a truck driver is never happy to be in the congestion, and from the other point of view, a truck in the congestion is the congestion, so no one is happy and everyone wants to find solution to deliver the goods. At the end of this process, we arrived at kind of 26 solutions. And I will not go through the 26, but just kind of an example. They are not so fantasy-based, but for example, off-peak delivery with noiseless trucks, electronic parcel lockers, point-to-point delivery, I will come back to this after, creating a green label to have the consumer able to choose a green way of being delivered, whereas a non-green, and mini hubs and cargo bikes. So our first project in Montreal was in 2019, and it was linked to the mini hubs and the e-cargo bikes. There are many projects on this kind in the cities, and in Toronto it started a couple of weeks ago, I think. The idea of a mini hub is, instead of having the same truck doing the highway and then crisscrossing, is to cut this chain in two, to have even a bigger truck from the highway to a mini hub, a cross-docking hub, and there to load some small vehicles, and why not bikes. We are targeting high-frequency delivery, because where delivery companies are losing the more time is finding a spot to park and going out of the truck, taking the parcel, delivering. So the idea is to have high-frequency delivery, and we will win efficiency through smaller vehicles. The economic model we have chosen here is that we only share the infrastructure, but each company is doing its business. So, for example, Purolator playing with us in this project, they are using their trucks, their bikes, their drivers. So everyone is doing its own business, but we are sharing an infrastructure. expected performances, reduction of negative externalities, but also on the other hand, showing that it's efficient. So a couple of pictures. It's not small bikes, as you see. It's more or less a spacecraft or something like this, but it's still a bike. And we use a former coach station here in the center of the city of Montreal. So some outcomes based on figures from September to December 19. We delivered 7,500 parcels, all companies together. What we observe is that, of course, we reduced the greenhouse gas emission because we reduced the use of the trucks, but we also won 15% in efficiency. So 15% more stops per hour, thanks to the bikes and thanks to the fact that they can park easily, they are agile in the congestions, and they can park very close from the final address. What happened after December is that we had some troubles with the winter, but it's not linked to the snow and the roads. It's more linked that the warehouses were not heated, and so it was difficult to manage parcel, but by -15. And those troubles were managed in March, and in March something happened named COVID-19. But just as a reference, Purelator and the other guys started again the project a couple of months ago, and today they are delivering more than 2,500 parcels a week. They are ramping up, and Purelator started the project with only one bike and one tour per day, and now they are at 5 bikes, 2 tours a day, and targeting 10 bikes. So they're really observing a great efficiency, and they are looking to these bikes to help them for the Black Friday and what's coming in the next months. What happened in March with COVID-19, you know the facts, but non-essential shops were closed during 2 months here in Montreal, but authorized to sell online or by phone. But many of these shops never did e-com or even selling by phone, and so they didn't know how to deliver, how to ship goods. Canada Post and major carriers were overwhelmed, and we saw a major shift from B2B to B2C. B2C is e-com. And the small local companies were also facing a major drop from the B2B activity, and it was difficult to them to catch the B2C business. So the idea and the fact that we had made the project Colibri before is that we had a very tightly woven ecosystem with the city, local economic development organization, non-profit sustainable mobility organization, local shops, and local delivery companies. And in 2 weeks, we get to launch a temporary project. The objective of the project was to help the shops to survive, but was also for us to learn and to think from start for a perennisation and a sustainable model. So the idea was practically to test the point-to-point delivery. Today, if a shop wants to deliver something to a client who lives 5 kilometers away, you have a truck coming in the evening, picking up, making 20 kilometers to the sorting center, and the day after or 3 weeks after, depending on the period, the truck will do again 20 kilometers. So for us, it's not sustainable, and we try to make something very easy like this. So targeting local shops and their local clients. Perhaps using a urban mini hub, because we have to be honest, it's difficult to be very efficient when you cannot sort the parcel and you cannot spend evening or night preparing the optimized tools for the days after. The idea was to make the product so to have local business and local client. We didn't want to put in competition a shop from a borough and another shop from the other. We wanted to make it with lowest footprint, with real employees, showing that the model with companies was also feasible. And we tried consolidation mechanics, risk sharing with a balanced business model. So in fact, in 2 weeks, we made a multi-assumption scaled up pilot project, which was a little bit scary and intense. We tested, in fact, 5 assumptions. So the cargo bike delivery, is it efficient or not? We already knew it is efficient. Point-to-point delivery, risk sharing on the value chain. In the transport business, you start winning money when you have a big density in an area. So, and the idea is that transport companies are carrying the risk when they are not reaching this density level. Here, we wanted to make something a little bit more fair and to share the value and the risk. We asked and we wanted the shops to regroup and to consolidate their demand. If you have 10 shops in a street with each shop shipping 1 parcel a day, it's not efficient. You want to regroup these parcels and to have only 1 demand for these 10 parcels. And on the other side, we also try to consolidate the deliveries so that when these 10 shops are asking for 10 shipping of parcels, instead of having 10 different companies, we will have on one area only 1 company, which is more efficient and because you reach the good density level. So couple of learnings based on the 2 months. We pick up and delivered 8,000 parcel in 2 months. There is a real market for local-to-local delivery, and with the closing of the shops, with people perhaps being sometimes a little bit lazy to go to the shops, we see this business really increasing. Cyclo-logistic is efficient and competitive for kind of short distance and quick deliveries, but it's not only efficient for only small parcels. We delivered up to 15 pounds a parcel in the project. And the idea of consolidation is really a key to reach a good efficiency. Some improvements we saw is that we weren't always connected to the e-com solutions, and let's say it, if you are not connected to the e-com solution, it's not possible. Shops has no time to make some copy and paste in another platform. You want something which is really seamless. Also, even if shops want to deliver their neighbors, they also want sometimes to deliver in other cities, other regions, or even in other countries. So it's very important to have a one-stop shop in delivery service platforms. So you need something where bike delivery companies are partnering with bigger transporter companies so that it's only in one platform. We also need for IT standards, from the e-com integration to the platform, also from the platform to the delivery companies. So today, each big carrier has its own system, and each time you want to integrate it to something other, you need huge work in IT. So there is a real need for standards, like we saw standards in the long distance shipping, and also in the web and all IT shared stuff. We also learned that it's very difficult to optimize routes where you make pickups and delivery at the same time. Because if you have 10 pickups to do, 2 deliveries, 10 pickups more, you don't know if you will have the space in your bike. And so it's complicated to optimize routes in life when you make pickups and delivery. What really brought us to the fact that mini hubs as shared infrastructure in cities are kind of a vital point, and they're also allowed to make some pickups in the late afternoon, go back to the sorting center, to the mini hub, and then have optimized route for the day after. Finally, cyclo-logistic is a real new world to experiment and to innovate. The lead is now in Europe and more or less in Germany and Denmark. Last year in Germany, they sold 80,000 cargo bikes. When you know that a cargo bike is between $5,000 and $10,000, there is a huge market. And these cargo bikes are not always optimized for our North American context. We have some snow in Montreal, we have some scrappy roads. And so, for example, a 3-wheeled bike is sometimes not the most efficient. And you need some wheels where you can put things for the ice. So there is a need for adapted cargo bikes for the Canadian context. There is also a need for standardization in cargo bike boxes. The Euro pallet and the US pallet were the base, and the container were the base of the logistics standardization. Perhaps tomorrow we will see a kind of a half pallet which are sized to fit on a cargo bike. And this would really improve the efficiency of these practices. And finally, we saw it with Purolator. When a truck is prepared in the sorting center, it's kind of 150 parcels for the day. It's easy to put them behind the truck. There is some space. But if this truck arrives to a cross-docking mini-hub and then you have to load bikes, you are starting a manual work. Instead of this, if you had the truck loaded with boxes already sorted for the tours of the bike, we would win in efficiency dramatically. So the idea is also that changing the way of delivering the last mile may have changes on the whole structure of the delivery chain. And there is again much space for innovation. And for the last word, this project and this the project we started and we did during the spring was really showing that a smaller company may be very resilient and reactive to changes, and that a tightly woven ecosystem is also a good help. In 2 weeks, we made the first deliveries. And this is really because the companies knew the city, knew us, knew the suppliers, and it was really a good way to manage this context. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we appreciate your presentation, Michael. And thank you. It sounds like 8,000 deliveries in 2 months. You folks were probably pretty busy, but look forward to see more development on that side. I would like now to introduce Mr. Richard Blundell, who's the head of strategy for Pantonium. And basically, Richard has been around for some time in the innovation ecosystem here in Ontario in particular. He was the former managing director of the Cleantech Venture Services Group at Mars Discovery District, and he joined the company Pantonium, who's a well-known company to OCE, in June 2020. And so, Richard, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I realized I was muted. Thanks, Martin, for that generous introduction, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So let me start by telling you, or just talking a little bit about bus transit. So bus travel is by far the most efficient and equitable and sustainable form of urban transport. The ultimate goal of cities really is to improve the quality of life for all their constituents, whether those are residential, commercial, or industrial, where public transport plays a really critical role in achieving the objectives, as you can see from the list that I've got on the slide. So things like reducing congestion, providing affordable, reliable, and frequent service, better utilization of city infrastructure, in this case, mostly roads, moving more people with less vehicles, and ensuring, most importantly, particularly now, ensuring the efficient use of public resources. So if you look at the photo on this slide on the right, what you're seeing is what it looks like to have 70 people in a bus and the same amount of people in their cars, which you can obviously see is not a very efficient, equitable, and sustainable way to actually solve the problem of moving 70 people in a city. So the company Pantonium is solving the most complex urban transport problem, which is moving large groups of people in large vehicles on demand, dynamically, and in real time, which versus a taxi app like Uber Pool or the microtransit companies, they're moving small groups of people short distances in small vehicles, which is not very efficient. So the complexity of the Pantonium's algorithm increases factorially. So not exponentially, but factorially with each additional passenger, which is a very, very complex problem to solve. So let me just move this here. And as you can see, current urban transport trends are just simply not sustainable, given that 10% of commuters are using on average public transport, with 80% of residents still driving in their cars alone. And by the way, that's dramatically increased during the course of the pandemic. And an important statistic here, which is that more than 50% of industries located in the suburbs, where there's little to no access for public transport. So that means that people are cut out of the system and their ability to actually access jobs if they're working in those facilities. So on-demand public transport is the best position to actually address all of these issues. And now, given COVID, and you can see with the chart on the slide, there's been a dramatic drop in ridership, up to 80% in some transit authorities. And the other thing that's happening is that major corporations have made announcements to move to a more or completely distributed workforce, including Canada's most valuable company, Shopify, and others like Twitter, Facebook, Square, Box, Slack, even the French automaker PSA, so Peugeot, has actually moved all of its non-production staff, off-site and out of offices. So all of these things are steeply increasing the incidence of unproductive fixed bus routes, many of which, and we've seen this recently just around Toronto, have been canceled outright to manage the revenue shortfalls and the budget constraints that are being produced by the not just the pandemic, but these changing behaviors, which are likely to stay with us after the pandemic is over. But that's not all. There are other challenges that are transforming cities, and I'll just talk very briefly about each one of these. But from an urbanization standpoint, more than 300 million people are moving into cities every year. It's producing something called urban sprawl, which is putting a huge strain on public transport infrastructures and costing, for instance, the U.S. economy upwards of an additional $1 trillion per year just to manage the costs associated with urban sprawl. Digitalization is accelerating the pace of change and driving new, for instance, mobility as a service opportunities, which are largely being underpinned by real-time on-demand architectures, where data privacy and security will be essential for the successful adoption of these new on-demand and real-time architectures at scale. From a health and wellness standpoint, or perspective, we're going to be working more at home, and it's going to require communities to be designed really to improve quality of life, where transit again plays an important role in providing access, safety, and improved wellness, or if you like, work-life balances, which is becoming very, very important these days, particularly from a wellness standpoint. The demographic changes that we're seeing, the workforce is getting much younger, so millennials and Generation Z, and as a whole, I'm part of that other part of the demographic shift. We're actually living longer. It may not appear to be, but we are. And so these two really overriding demographic trends require different but very easy to use, seamless digital and physical customer experiences that only on-demand services or transit can supply at scale. So the reality is that customer experience, both digital and physical experiences for the elderly, as well as for the younger generation, matters, and it actually matters more than price today. Social and racial equity is absolutely at the core of community prosperity. It's something that we are at Pantonium very focused on eliminating and delivering, the inequity we're focused on eliminating and delivering much more equity from a social standpoint. It's really at the core of community prosperity, and public transport has, again, an important role to play to ensure that nobody is left behind, nobody's cut out of the system, so that everyone can participate in the growth of their communities and have the ability to lead rich and productive lives. And lastly, sustainability is really going to be at the center of all of the urban mobility business model innovations, much like what Michael has just shared with us, to ensure that climate and infrastructure resiliency will be all about doing more with less. And if you look at what the EU announced recently, their entire recovery plan is going to be underpinned by climate resiliency. So we think on demand is the answer to all of these issues when you sort of put it all together. We think that it's there's an important distinction here to understand about on demand and microtransit. But the high density fixed routes are really not the issue. The issue is really around unproductive low density or off peak routes. So these are things like weekends, evenings, or off peak travel outside of commuter times. Even commuter times, if we go to a more distributed workforce, is going to be a challenge. So these are the problems that we really need to urgently solve, and they need to be addressed by productivity enhancements using the existing infrastructure that we have and the existing vehicles. And so on-demand solutions now are becoming synonymous with microtransit, which is an absolutely incorrect label. Microtransit actually is all about employing new being the operative word here, smaller vehicles to move smaller groups of people within smaller geographies, so smaller geographic coverage. So actually microtransit's doing less with more. It's more capex because you have to buy new vehicles. It's less riders, less service area coverage, and there's also a data privacy vulnerability issue. Since the fact, these microtransit solutions use GPS to actually track movement, which has got there's a significant privacy and security issue there. We only use Pantonium people's email addresses to communicate with, because all we really want to know is where you want to go and when you want to get there. We don't want to track your movements to get there. So, sort of in a time where transit authorities need to adapt to a rapidly changing world with very new behaviors and a new set of urban challenges with deeply constrained budgets, we think it's actually paramount to implement on-demand solutions that do more with less. And so what we've developed is a solution we call Pantonium's macrotransit that does more with less. So we actually deliver more riders with less vehicles, greater service coverage with less transfers. That's very important when you're getting to when you're moving within a city. And I'm going to show you a little clip of a pilot that we did in Belleville. It'll show you why service areas or how service areas are left uncovered. And if you actually want to discover your neighborhood, you have to make multiple transfers to actually see or discover a neighborhood or a city. So service coverage, bigger service coverage with less transfers, so getting you there directly. Again, more social inclusion and equity here, making sure that people are not cut out of the system, really adding more convenience and accessibility with less hassles and restrictions, delivering much more resiliency, both on the infrastructure side and on the climate side, with less operating costs and less carbon emissions, more data, privacy and security, as I've just mentioned. So you're reducing the vulnerability from both a health and identity standpoint. I'll just mention from a health standpoint, we have the ability, obviously, to limit the number of people on a bus. So if you only want 20 people on a bus because they need to be socially distanced, you can do that very easily, which is harder to do if you're sort of doing the traditional fixed route approach. And most importantly, delivering community prosperity and with less reliance on public funding. So I'm going to show you a little visualization here, which is a pilot that we did in Belleville, Ontario, where we converted a fixed night route bus to an on-demand route. So you can see, here we go, so that's the old route. You can see that there are entire neighborhoods that are not served within the fixed route. Like there's, huge swaths of city not served. So you can see that the way it works is we're routing from one place to another, depending on where people want to go and at what time they want to get there. So the on-demand service ensures that all neighborhoods were served, resulting in average wait times of 15 minutes, serving all bus stops in all neighborhoods, getting people to where they need to be with 20 to 30 people in a bus. And let me just slow this down so I can, the other thing is that it worked out to actually deliver a 300% increase in ridership. So the fixed route averaged 8 workers per service hour. We're up to 20 to 30. with greater than 70% increase in service area coverage, convenience, and residents getting to their jobs. And what you saw at the end here is this notion that we're helping you to actually discover your cities, your neighborhoods, and your communities, and helping you to get to where you need to go to deliver on whatever the activities that you're doing, or get you to the jobs that you're getting to. And what I want to just show you or highlight here, sorry, is the picture that you see here on the right is actually the heat map of that same service area that I just showed you in the animation. So you can see how much of that fixed route, or the neighborhoods inside that fixed route, were actually being served. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. This was an interesting indeed overview of what you've been doing with Belleville. And I think you have, since Belleville, I think you've been able to work with a number of other communities across Canada.
Yeah, we're now in 12 cities, you know, Stratford, Regina, St. Albert. You know, we've got some cities in the US as well. So the business has really just started to scale over the last 12 to 18 months. The company has pivoted after looking at or being engaged in other parts of the on-demand transit sort of universe, has pivoted to focus just on on-demand bus transport. So there's been, I think, you know, they've achieved a fantastic result to have scaled into 12 cities in such a short period of time, given the complexity of working within cities and working within the sales cycles that are very typical of cities.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Gentlemen and the audience, we are now open for questions. We have a few minutes left. So if you folks in the audience like to send a question to Michael or Richard, please do so using the box or the chat box on your screen for that. But to help generate a few questions here, I'm going to start with one, as I'll ask Richard. So what does public transport really look like in a post-COVID world?
In
a minute or less.
Yeah, so I think it's a very good question, and the reality is that it's going to be this notion of driving productivity into bus routes, and the reality is that buses are by far the most efficient way of moving people around. And given the fact that you've got these changing behaviors that are likely to stay with us, and the fact that you've got revenue shortfalls and budget constraints that are going to be a consequence of these changing behaviors and the changing sort of challenges in cities, there's really very little choice other than to adopt on-demand transport solutions as a way to deliver productivity into really all of the urban transport routes in a city. I don't think there's going to be any routes outside of very, very high density areas during peak times that are gonna be appropriate for fixed route transport. The rest of it is all gonna have to be done through on-demand applications, because it's just gonna be, it's the only way that you're going to actually be able to drive the productivity outcomes that you need to get to deliver also on the social equity issues, making sure people are not cut out of the system, making sure we're operating within maximized budget constraint and revenue shortfall environments. These things are going to be extremely important, going down the road as we emerge from this pandemic.
Thank you. Charles, would you have perhaps a question for Michael?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Martin.
There are already one question for Richard.
There's one already. Yes. So how does the pickup delivery model differ from C2B? So how do you manage the customer returns on your model?
So it's an anonymous question. I answered by writing. I'm not sure to understood it well. So it was, how does the pickup delivery model differ from C2B transaction for customer return? So just what I answered was that usually in the model, carriers are doing tours for delivering parcels, and after this they are doing dedicated tours for making the pickups. So the customer returns are usually sent back with the returns or shipped, in fact, through Post Canada or classical shipping. In our case, we have tours mixing pickups and deliveries. So you have to add some parcel to your bike or truck, delivering a piece of them, adding more, again delivering. So this is the complex fact of having tours which are mixing both. And there is a question for Richard also in the chat.
Yeah, from David, right? So what are the remaining challenges that your on-demand solution is working on or should be working on solving? So it's a good question, David. As I said at the outset, you know, we think we've solved the most complex issue for public transport, because if you think about, you know, in very high density areas, you'll have a, you know, sort of a backbone that is usually manifested as an underground or overground rail system where buses feed into, so they become sort of arteries feeding into that. Those are only in very large cities. And if you think about sort of the makeup of cities, not just in North America, but also in Europe and other parts of the world, the reality is there aren't that many sort of mega cities. There aren't that many very, very large, very, very dense cities. Most of the cities are sort of medium to small sized and don't have the ability to fund that kind of an, you know, sort of backbone with arteries feeding into it of transport system. It's all really done by buses. So the notion is, if we think we've solved this very complex problem, which allows us to actually create a platform. So that's what we're working on now. We're actually working on using this as a way to create a platform that will really do two things. It will allow other sort of smart mobility solutions to plug into, because we kind of think we've solved the really hard stuff. So mobility as a service type applications would plug into the platform. We think things like multimodal transport, what Michael was speaking about, you know, bikes and various different types of modes of transport, could plug into as from an application standpoint. And we think the other thing that this does, it actually unlocks the ability to make better policy decisions, to actually, if you've got this platform that can actually deliver these intelligent solutions, it unlocks the ability for public authorities to actually make, you know, some decisions on congestion, on pollution, on, you know, some of the policy issues that they're able to manipulate. So what we're really working on, and, you know, another thing we're going to plug into our platform, for instance, is payments. So there's a logical step for us to take to actually enhance the solution itself, make it broader and sort of so that it is got greater utility in a broader sort of set of use cases in smart mobility applications in cities. But I also think there's a very big policy piece there that will be unlocked by this platform. Does that answer your question?
I think that's good, Richard. We have probably time for one last one for Michael.
Yeah, so there's a question from the attendees wondering how the City of Montreal approached the project. And I could add, do you have any KPI? Do you have any indicators you already follow on this project? And what are the next steps of your project?
Okay, so 3 in 1. First, on the Colibri you have to know that the city, as any cities, has not to interfere in the logistics business, and it's not in their role or missions. So the aim of the city is to reduce negative externalities, and that's their role. The city helped us, city is financing Jalon Mtl, it's already a good point, and city helped us in the Colibri project by giving us the infrastructure. It was a building aiming at be destroyed in 2 or 3 years, so we are temporarily using it. But the city can help us putting a positive context to this kind of ways of changing the practices. Just to give you one example, we saw many pedestrian zones this summer in Montreal, and on pedestrian zone, bikes are not allowed to be on their bike. So people have to walk with their bike. And we got to have an exception for bike delivery. And in this pedestrian zone, bike delivery companies are allowed to go with their bikes. So this is a detail, but if you project further and you see that this is a way to helping companies to change their practices, it's giving an advantage to bike delivery companies compared to truck delivery companies. For just some KPIs on the project that we did during COVID-19 spring, we reached a level of price between $7 and $9 for a same day delivery for a parcel less than 15 pounds. It can be seen as very high for a price, but it's lower than in fact the market. Our big problem is that Amazon just put into the mind of people that delivery is free and very easy, whereas same day delivery is usually more than $10 price point. So with bike deliveries consolidation, we reach a price point lower than this.
Can I just quickly, Martin, if it's all right with
you?
You
Do have 30 seconds.
Okay, so David, just your follow-up question. No, we're not trying to be a mass tool or mobility as a service tool. What we're really trying to is an underlying architecture or a platform that mass can plug into. So it's really a platform where use cases can use, because we've already figured out the scheduling complexity of what we think is the most complex problem. So therefore, we think that there's a real opportunity for us to do the same thing for mass applications, mass use cases. So we don't want to be a tool, we want to be a platform that you'd plug into. I hope that answers your question.
All right, well, thank you very much. I think we're getting very close to our end here. So Richard, how do we get hold of you if we want to connect with you?
My email is the best, so it's richard.blundell@pantonium.com. So it's pretty straightforward. My name at pantonium.com.
Very well, thank you. Michael, how do we get hold of you?
I just sent my email in the chat.
Very well. Charles?
Well, I'll do the same. Put my email on the chat. That's going to be much easier.
All right. Well, we'll all do that. I think myself, I'm on the Avon team, so avonhub.ca and martin.lord at OCE-ontario.org. We've got a bit of a longer domain name. But hey, it was a pleasure to have you folks over today. I hope it was useful and informative to the audience. We're sorry for the few technical mishaps. I hope you can join us again and you take advantage of what we have to offer and contact us for any further questions and queries. Have a good day and keep safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.